Yellow lights are reasons for deciding against or not deciding at all on the proposed end in mind. They could appear either on your part or on the part of the prospective client. Yellow lights aren't enemies to be overcome. In fact, upon investigation, they may be valid reasons for not meeting. And if valid, we don't want to meet any more than the prospective client wants to. Yellow lights are merely something to understand, explore, and turn to either green or red. Some yellow lights are predictable, and you can think through them in advance. Others appear unexpectedly, and you can use a repeatable process to work with them effectively. What are some of the predictable yellow lights you might encounter on initial calls to people you've never met? You will and should come up with your own examples. However, here are a few we commonly hear. I don't have time right now. I'm not interested. We don't have any problems or opportunities. We're already working on that internally or with someone else. We don't have any budget for anything. There's a budget freeze on everything. Based on our experience working with yellow lights, we've developed a process you can use to respond to any type of yellow light, whether predictable or unexpected. A common process for resolving yellow lights is acknowledge and resolve. To acknowledge, slow down and see the yellow light from the other person's point of view, even though you may not agree with it. And to resolve, work towards a conclusion that seems reasonable to both parties. Let's look at a few examples together. When the prospective client says, I don't have time right now, you can acknowledge by saying, I absolutely respect that. And to resolve, you have some choices. One is to ask, would you like to schedule a time? Notice that the question is a little bit different than the presumptive questions, when would you like to schedule a time? Or what would be a better time? Those questions are perfectly acceptable. However, the unspoken question is whether they don't have time right now and would like to find a time, or whether they don't want to talk with you at all, and this is just their way of saying so. If they really don't want to schedule a time, getting them back on the line will often be problematic. In fact, you may find it useful to just ask the unspoken question. The answer might be, not a problem. Based on my conversation with Bill and the research I did, I think we'd both enjoy having at least a short conversation, and I'd like to find a time if you do. I also respect if this is a conversation you'd rather not have at all. Please feel free to choose whichever works best for you. Often, when people feel equality in the relationship and the freedom to choose, they are more willing to meet and are more likely to keep the appointment. If the prospective client wants to schedule a time, you can ask, did you want to schedule just 5 minutes so we could decide whether or not to spend more time? Or would you feel more comfortable setting aside 30 minutes or so to give us time to talk in more depth? Let's look at another example. Would you be surprised to hear a prospective client say, we're already working on that internally? Probably not. If it's a big problem or opportunity, they probably have been working on it. It's probably also fair to assume that they haven't solved it. Otherwise, they wouldn't still be working on it. So it's not too hard to figure out where you might go with a response. Acknowledge and understand could begin with something like, I fully expected that. Most of the companies we work with are. Could I ask, are you at the point where you would still welcome some innovative thinking and some insights about what is working and not working for others? Or are you close to declaring victory and moving on? If they're still open to new thinking, it's a reason to meet. If not, their response is similar to the response of, that's not a problem for us. When a prospective client says something is not a problem or an opportunity, you might think, great. Or you could be thinking along the lines of, oh, yes, it is. It's probably best to acknowledge the yellow light by saying, great, glad to hear it. And then see if there's a polite way to test out any other theories you might have. For instance, you could ask some questions to gently test whether the issue or something closely related to it might actually be a concern. It might sound like, glad to hear it. Out of curiosity, in regards to quality, how are your customers responding? If you have done research, you can possibly share evidence or metrics that would indicate unrealized opportunities. When you share this information, ask with polite curiosity if that is a number they would like to improve if they could. You can also ask if the issue at hand isn't viewed as a problem or opportunity because there truly is no room for improvement, or because potential improvements in that area aren't a priority. If it's not a priority to them, is it a priority to someone in their organization? And if it's not a priority to anyone, what are some of their top priorities related to your field of expertise? Let's remember the big picture. You're trying to see if there's a fit between what you do well and what the prospective clients want, need, or value. If they truly don't want, need, or value what you do, and if no one else in their company does either, then you have an answer to your question. Perhaps not the answer you hoped for, but an answer nonetheless. Apply the process to your most common or toughest yellow lights. As you work through the yellow lights you can predict, you'll be better prepared to work through ones that appear unexpectedly.